Oh, hello and welcome to the Will Cain Show. I'm not Will Cain. My name is Kennedy. I am your Fox News friend. Will and I work together, not on the same showroom, but oftentimes on the same floor when he is doing the Will Cain Show podcast here from glorious New York City on the 15th floor of 1211 Avenue of the Americas. Now you know where we are. Will apparently is he's off on a surfing safari with his family. There are a couple things that Will and I have in common, and it's why we get along. Number one, we love freedom. And I don't think either of us are ashamed to admit it. I talk about freedom a lot. I have my own podcast here. Go to foxnewspodcast.com and find Kennedy Saves the World. It is an absolute delight, and you can spend about 20 minutes a day with me 5 days a week on that Fox News podcast. Again, Kennedy Saves the World, also known as Kennedalia Saves the World, depending if you've been drinking mojitos. Will and I like to surf. We love freedom. We love sports. We love our family. We see the absurdities in politics all the time. I am an ideological libertarian. I'm not a member of the Libertarian Party. I can always be talked into it. Haven't been so far. I definitely have some more conservative views than other libertarians. I make no apologies about that. But, you know, freedom, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff, and stay out of my business is pretty much the going ethos around here in the Kennedalia household. So Will may be surfing right now, and I will be going to Maui next week. So, you know, hopefully Will doesn't start a conflagration, and things should be just fine if the Cain family makes it out of there and leaves some surf in their wake. I will be joining him, and I love that surfing is in the Olympics. I don't know if you've seen the incredible images. We also, what is now being regarded as the greatest Olympic photograph of all time, and that was Brazilian surfer Gabriel Medina. He had such a great wave. So in Tahiti, there's a very heavy wave called Chopu or Tiopu, depending on how you want to say it. And it was deemed unsurfable for a long time until Laird Hamilton and some other ball-heavy big wave surfers went over there and figured out how to throw down. So that's one of the things that I'm really excited to see in the Olympics. Of course, my daughters were USAG gymnasts for a long time, for many years. And as a parent, you know, you always worry if your kids are doing too much of one sport, because that has been kind of the norm over the last 10, 15 years, is kids specializing. And in sports like gymnastics, they kind of get picked out of a recreational program and thrust into, you know, one of the two governing body leagues in gymnastics. And USAG is, you know, I would argue the more competitive one that leads to an Olympic track. I knew my girls were never going to be Olympians, but at one point they were doing 20 hours a week in the gym, which was great because it kept them busy. They had good friend groups and social circles in the gym. It taught them, you know, work ethic and discipline and overcoming boredom and, you know, a lot of things that kids who really aren't in sports aren't exposed to, especially in big cities where one or both parents are working. So I loved seeing Simone Biles back in 2021. A lot of people gave her a hard time for having the twisties. People said that she was soft. She lost her work ethic. Look at these millennials. They're so lazy. And that only fueled her hunger to come back and taste gold once again. So I got to sit on the couch with my daughters, and one of them is now a gymnastics coach. And they were explaining to me the level of difficulty, because sometimes it's hard to see in sports like that, because when an athlete is really, really good, and it doesn't matter if it's track or gymnastics, even surfing. You know, if you watch someone like Kelly Slater, who would be the equivalent in surfing to Simone Biles, they make it look so incredibly effortless. So I was sitting on the couch with my girls, the same that we had done in 2021 and 2016 and 2012. And in 2008, before my youngest was born, my 3-year-old daughter then, that's when she really developed the gymnastics bug. But what I loved about Simone Biles' story, she went through something incredibly difficult, came back, did less gymnastics, and emerged a better gymnast, a more well-rounded person who talks about how hard she has to work, talks about the physical limitations of being 27 and staying in a sport where, the only people who are doing Olympics at that age for women are like the 40-year-old Albanian vaulters who are competing for other countries. So Simone Biles is a phenom, but such an incredible example of a hardworking, authentic person. Contrast that with, another woman who is eclipsing headlines right now, and that is Kamala Harris, who's sucking all the oxygen out of the room thanks to a handy press who is very happy to whitewash her horrible record. But when you compare these two women, like Simone Biles is the kind of person I want my daughters to be. Kamala Harris is the kind of person I want to go away and stay out of politics forever because she combines two of the worst aspects in humanity, and that is incompetence and ambition. Incompetence is fine as long as you are not in a position of power. Incompetence married with ambition is truly dangerous because you're really only in it for yourself. You are not moored by any particular honorable political ideology. You're just swinging for the fences because you want to put up some numbers for the sake of your own portfolio, your own power portfolio. And that's what I see Kamala Harris doing. And she's the kind of person, the kind of politician that I would never want my daughters to be. Someone especially who is so shrouded in victimhood and the idea that you want to be the most powerful person in the world, but you want to be shielded from criticism because of your immutable characteristics. I think it is absolute dog crap. It is garbage. She is more dangerous than we could have ever fathomed because she is so close to the presidency. And I wouldn't be surprised, and I know I've heard other people say this, if Joe Biden steps aside. So, she gets the top job for at least a couple of weeks so she makes it onto the placemat. Our little Gerald Ford. So we're going to talk about freedom. We're going to talk about Kamala Harris today with a couple of people who look at politics, who look at elections from their own independent lenses, including the redheaded libertarian who joins me now. She is TRHL official on X. She also hosts her own show on X. Josie, welcome to the Will Cain Show.
Hi, Kennedy. Thank you for having me. I can't hear you very well. Somebody had turned the volume down on that end. Can
you hear me now? How about now? It's like an old Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now?
It's very quiet.
Oh, it's so quiet. It's like a Bjork song. I always loved going to the 90s. Can you hear me now? Isn't that a fun way of asking things? Okay, so we're going to have you hold on one second. We're going to fix some things from our end, and hopefully we have a better interface because I really, really want to know what Josie has to say because right now she is being told if you are a woman and if you are a white woman, then you are going to vote for Kamala Harris. And if you don't, it's because you are racist and sexist or you are so feeble and empty-headed your Republican husband has told you how to vote. And I remember when that was one of Hillary Clinton's excuses. And, it's taken this long. It's taken 8 years for another woman to really be taken seriously and be her major party's nominee for president because Hillary Clinton wrecked it for so many women. And, now Kamala Harris, who didn't even have the blessing of her party, if she did, they would have taken the same mechanism they used to push Joe Biden out of the White House, and they would have done it a year and a half ago to make sure that they would have had an open primary. So some of the other big name, well-regarded Democrat contenders could have jumped into the fray, fought each other, and one of them would have emerged victorious as opposed to the coronation that we've just had, which is pretty much one of the most undemocratic things you could ever see, especially in the wake of essentially the resignation of the president, who is now not going to seek a second term, and the assassination attempts of the leading candidate for president, which was essentially not only forgotten on most network newscasts, but also if you try and search it, good luck. Thanks, Google. All right, Josie is back with us. She's the redheaded libertarian. She has the show on X. She's a delight. So welcome to the Will Cain Show.
Thank you for having me, Kennedy. Crisis averted. I can hear everything now.
So where does Kamala Harris sit on your freedom meter?
I think she is probably as low as you can possibly go. I mean, from her record as a prosecutor over in California to the fact that she's accomplished absolutely nothing now, and the comment she said about free immigration coming across the border with an open border, and how when she was running in 2019, she said she'd be a prosecutor president. So that's kind of anti-freedom as well. She's very, she leans very communist to me with her kind of anti-family, anti-religion, anti-history, anti-truth sort of vibe that I get from her. So she's probably the worst possible person to have at president.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point, because and that's one of her pushes now, because obviously law and order is very high up on the list for a lot of voters, particularly in big blue cities where they have voted Democrat for years and years. It is a multi-generational phenomenon. They have been told that, Democrats are the only ones who care. Republicans have forsaken you. Therefore, you have to vote for the statist Democrats. And that's the system where she came up in California through San Francisco as the district attorney in San Francisco, attorney general of the state of California, and then the Senate. And, she's never really been challenged, but she's running as a cop, as a prosecutor. But if you look at her record in California, she was always putting the wrong people in prison. She was incarcerating people who deserved a second shot, who deserved freedom. But now her policies have led to this rampant crime in California. And the people who really should be prosecuted are somehow, they also get to share her cloak of victimhood, and they get a pass. How can you have it both ways?
Yeah, she put something like 1,500 people in jail for pot crime. She withheld evidence that would have freed a man from death row and had to be forced to put forward that evidence. She held people beyond their sentences and used them as cheap labor.
Yeah, so they could fight wildfires.
Yeah, exactly. But then when you have people who are actually doing bad things, like hurting children, I mean, she's not the prosecutor there anymore, but now those people have kind of this, they're not punished, but you're still having people who, really didn't do things as bad get punished. She's imprisoned parents for their truant kids. So the fact that when she was challenged on this in 2019 and she stood by her record and said, I'm going to be a prosecutor president. And since then, she has done nothing. She's achieved nothing. She's changed nothing. She has no positive record of doing anything over the last 4 years at all. Yet she has this amazing PR team where people suddenly think she's some sort of goddess.
Yes, white dudes for Kamala. It's very interesting seeing the process, because the same team minus Anita Dunn, who was one of President Biden's most trusted senior advisors. She was definitely in the inner circle, but the rest of them, they will do whatever they can to prop up a person and make them seem viable. So who, if you don't mind me asking, because people ask me this all the time and I don't have an answer for them right now. They say, who are you voting for? It doesn't matter, because I vote in California. So it really doesn't matter who I vote for president. And I always write in my friends' names for all the judges. At some point, Kat Timpf is going to look very good in a black robe in Superior Court in California. But who are you voting for?
I have written in Ron Paul every single year since 2012.
Nice. Do you think that Rand Paul will run again?
It's hard to say. He's one of my favorites. I'm one of the rare libertarians who found Rand Paul before I found Ron Paul. Mm-hmm. And I really liked him. But what gets people into office is charm and charisma. And as much as I adore Rand Paul, and I love his personality, he doesn't have that sort of charisma that presidents have. So
But
it's
he's
very
competent. I mean, it's like
he is.
you look at the landscape now, and it's almost like it feels like all bets are off. Like everything is
Yeah.
weird and chaotic. If there were ever a time for someone to come in who is a prickly pear, who just wants to cut taxes, cut spending, reduce the size and scope of the federal government. And we always say that to ourselves as libertarians, like, well, now is the moment. Now is the time. Like, people are so sick of the two-party system, but they never really get there.
Yeah, and he's Superman's son. So, and we've seen him survive getting attacked from behind from his neighbor. We saw him survive COVID with 1.5 lungs because he had to have part of his lung removed after that attack. We saw him survive a train crash. We saw him survive the shooting at the ballpark. Like, this man is invincible. We've seen physically, and he's unshakable when it comes to his integrity. When it comes to cutting spending and standing up against people and voting against unpopular bills that everybody likes because they're named something pretty. But I think he would be great. I just wish that more people weren't like, oh, well, he's not like nice. He's not silly. He's not, charming. And that's the kind of things that people will vote for when they're looking for a president.
Yes. When Megan Thee Stallion is on the stump for you, if that's all that matters to you, we're screwed as a country.
Absolutely. And, I think that that's what's bringing people into Kamala's rallies is free concerts. You're going to go to a place where people might not be able to ever afford to do that. And you're like, we're going to have it free. And you're going to bring people into your rally, and people are going to think they're there to see Kamala when they're just there for a hip hop concert. And I think that they saw that worked in Georgia, and they're going to probably keep that strategy up.
Do you think the presidency is too powerful? Because, it's like when Biden was really faltering after the debate, and a lot of people are like, I might just vote for Trump. Like, it's not really going to be that much different. Do you agree with that? Do you think the presidency is constrained, or is it too powerful? And would a President Kamala really be a threat to the way our country exists right now?
It depends on if the Supreme Court and Congress want to restrain that power. Because we saw when President Trump was in office, he could hardly get anything done because he kept being blocked by Congress for everything, even the little things. It was very oppositional Congress. So that would be part of it. And I think that the presidency does have too much power. Congress has given away a lot of their powers, including their war powers, to the president. So I believe that, as the founders intended, the presidency should be it shouldn't matter who's there, because they shouldn't have any power that would change the world, essentially.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I wish there were someone. The one thing I liked about Trump is he put people in charge of entire departments who really couldn't stand them. And, it's like, I love that Thomas Massie is always trying to put forth legislation to completely get rid of entire federal departments that we don't need. They are truly superfluous, especially the Department of Education. I wish we had someone who looked around and went, you know what, taxes are too damn high. And instead of, these falsehoods that statists put forward, like, the Trump tax cuts only benefited the top 10%. It's like, that is bull crap on a stick. And I wish I didn't have to soften my language, but here on the Will Cain Show, this is a family show. And,
Yes.
And I wouldn't want to turn your redhead gray.
Oh, I'll go white before I'll go gray, apparently, allegedly. So actually, George Washington only had 4 positions in his cabinet. So he had, state, treasury, war, and defense.
Well, now we have the Kama Sutra. Now we have so many positions. Everyone's running around in the Congress of the cow. It's not good for business. I mean, it really isn't, because people are regulated and taxed out of existence. And, with the Fed raising interest rates, it's impossible to get a loan. You can't start your own business. And it is horrible for a system. It's like they love to pay lip service to small businesses are the backbone of the economy. It's like, well, why don't you get out of the way so people can actually start businesses and do cool things? So someone can come up with the next DoorDash or the next Uber. But anytime something cool comes along, the statists have to march in and wreck it. Elizabeth Warren's like, well, there's just not enough regulation in crypto. I really think that we need to regulate ride sharing out of office. When Mamaw and Peepaw were on the reservation, they didn't have a lift. They got smallpox from the whites.
I thought that was so good. I thought that Elizabeth Warren actually came and infected your body and came out of your mouth. That was incredible.
It is an infection. It is that brand of thinking. It really is an infection. So I guess, so what do we do? Do we use the Spike Cohen model where we just try and get liberty-minded people to run for local office and take it over with trickle-up economics?
Yeah, that's how the communists did it. The communists started at low level and they got into the school boards and the sheriff's department and the select boards. And from there, they got into their state offices. And from there, they got into the federal offices. And now they are leading every institution in America. And so if we can learn anything from the communists, it's how to infiltrate a country and take it back or take it over. I mean, in their case, but in our case, to take it back. So
that's what the Rajneeshis did. I remember it growing up in Oregon. That's what they did. They took over a town and ran for all the posts and kicked everyone out. And they were all boning each other and wearing red. And, it's like they were like the precursor to the modern commies we have now. I do not like communists.
Me neither. I'm anti-communist.
Yes, and that's why your red hair protects you like a freedom shield. So, Josie, I want to thank you for taking the time here, and please tell everyone where they can find your show on X.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. You can find me on X at TRHL Official, or you can go to timcast.com and become a member over there and help to support our work.
Phenomenal. Thank you so much for your time. I always appreciate it.
Thank you, Kennedy.
Absolutely. So we are going to check in with the party people who play songs, and they're going to keep this dance party going. And I'm going to talk to the missing link generationally, an actual Gen Zer who might have the best sense of what is to come in this country. Stay with me. It's Kennedy on The Will Cain Show.
I'm Emily Campagno, host of the Fox True Crime Podcast. On June 27, 2000, 16-year-old Molly Bish disappeared while working as a lifeguard in Warren, Massachusetts. 3 years later, her remains were found just 5 miles away from where she was last seen. This week, I'm joined by Molly's older sister, Heather Bish, as she discusses where her case stands today, as well as her victim advocacy work for other families experiencing similar tragedies. Available now on Apple, Spotify, and FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
Streaming now on Fox Nation, an all-new season of American Dynasty.
They had the dream. They had the idea.
5 new episodes.
Having the right idea at the right time is the golden road to riches.
5 new families.
They never stopped trying to come up with something.
Harley-Davidson, Mars, Johnson & Johnson, the Carnegies.
He took that company where no one thought it would go.
And Anheuser-Busch.
What more could you want?
The monarchs of money are back. American Dynasty. New season streaming now, only on Fox Nation. Sign up at foxnation.com.
I'm Emily Campagno, host of the Fox True Crime Podcast. On June 27, 2000, 16-year-old Molly Bish disappeared while working as a lifeguard in Warren, Massachusetts. 3 years later, her remains were found just 5 miles away from where she was last seen. This week, I'm joined by Molly's older sister, Heather Bish, as she discusses where her case stands today, as well as her victim advocacy work for other families experiencing similar tragedies. Available now on Apple, Spotify, and FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
Hi, welcome back to the Will Cain Show. It's Kennedy and Link Lauren.
Hi,
Link
for
Lauren.
having me. I'm a huge fan
It's
of
great
yours.
to see you.
Thank you for having me.
So you're young and scrubbed.
I'm definitely a Gen Z. I've been following all of this Kamala drama on social media.
It is drama,
the
isn't
coconut memes. I want less coconuts and more talk about policy and how she's actually going to help people in this country. But the young people seem to be eating up the memes right now.
They've really figured out TikTok campaigning.
Exactly.
And I knew this is a thing a few years ago because my daughters would come in and be like, "You are not going to believe what I saw on TikTok." And I was like, "How do we unring this bell?" And they discovered South Park and unrung it on their own.
What's so funny to me is that Kamala and Biden have said they would sign a TikTok ban if it passed their desk, but they want to use TikTok the next few months to reach young voters, and then they're going to take it away from them. But what I found out this morning before I came in here is that Kamala has spent $28.6 million in internet advertising in the last 7 days. Trump has only spent $1.4 million. So I don't think there's a lot of organic love for Kamala Harris. I think they're just astroturfing
It's projected
her.
it.
Yeah, blasting her
yes.
all over the internet, tens of millions of dollars to push
Does
her out on the
that
internet.
work, though? Are people that dumb?
So it could work because Kamala didn't have to run in a primary. She didn't have an open convention. You know, she hasn't really been battle tested. She's hoping she can just coast the next 90 days on vibes and coconut memes. But I think the American people are smart. And, you know, when I go to Kamala's page, I don't see any discussion about issues that matter to my generation. Like home ownership is the top concern for every Gen Z person. How am I going to...
they're just going to promise you free homes. They're not going to be able to deliver it.
No, they're not going to deliver anything.
It would be mathematically impossible. They haven't been able to do it in her home state of California, where she didn't make the housing crisis any better.
No, she absolutely did not. They're also trying to buy votes right now by doing, you know, the student loan forgiveness and all of that. But I don't think it's going to be enough. You know, when I go to her page, she's laughing, she's dancing, she's having a good time. I can't help but think that world leaders, you know, Kim Jong-un, President Xi, Putin, are seeing Kamala dancing and laughing and thinking, oh, we're just sitting ducks for more attacks. Like, she doesn't show strength on the world stage in any way, shape, or form.
And I think that's a really good point, because if you are going to be the first female president of the United States, I hate to say it, but you got to have balls.
You got to be tough. And if you notice, Kamala's team has been keeping her away from any sit-down interviews. They're scared to have her do any...
Even with Lester Holt. You know, remember when she was like, I haven't been to Europe either.
They're like, have you been to the border? She's like, I haven't been to Guatemala. It's like, can you just go to Arizona, Texas? Can you go visit the border, please? You're
Literally
put in charge
anywhere.
of the border.
Just take Air Force 2 to Eagle Pass.
She has no problem flying around for fundraisers and Hollywood events, but she wouldn't go down to the border. That's how I felt about President Biden as well. You know, he had all the time in the world to hang out with Zelensky and go to events and hang out with celebrities. You couldn't go down to the border when we have the worst immigration crisis in American history?
Yeah, you're more worried about the Ukrainian border.
Right, exactly.
Which is sad.
We're funding the Ukraine border.
Awful. But it's like, I would be very surprised if the Chancellor of Germany went to Eagle Pass, Texas, or Brownsville. Like, that would be, you know, it's like stay in your own lane, but that's what we're doing in Ukraine.
100%.
So I mean, I wish there were some more urgency, and you know, I am the daughter of an immigrant. You know, my mom fled communism and came here from Romania.
Okay.
And I have a different view of immigrants because, you know, they are the hardest working people in the country. I do not hate them. I do not demonize them.
Right.
I think there are a lot of people who do at their own peril. But I think our system is broken.
Right.
It is impossible for people to come into this country legally. Illegal immigration, that lane is wide open. And if you talk to people who have tried for years to get their green card, it's really, really frustrating because, you know, they do not violate any traffic laws. They do not steal things from CVS or Lululemon, yet they are having the hardest time.
Right.
However, any of their compatriots can just whoop,
waltz right in.
Right up the honey hole, right into Arizona or Texas.
What's so interesting, I'm from Texas, so this really does hit home. And I went down to the border recently in April, and I did a whole border tour. We went to see the wall. We visited NGOs and nonprofits. These local border towns are bearing the brunt of the federal government's failures. So their hospitals, their food banks, they don't have the finances and the resources to take care of all these illegal migrants.
Or the NGOs.
Yeah, exactly. But Biden and Kamala just want to sit in D.C. They want to coast and try to make it to November 5th. But I don't know what's going to happen. It's interesting. The Democrats seem to forget that Bill Clinton, I believe, in the 90s was the one who said we're a country of immigrants, but we're also a country of laws. And so if they could just go back and look at what they said in their own party, if you look at some of the things Democrats used to say in the 90s, early 2000s, they would be considered right-wing talking points now.
Yes.
You know, we used to believe in strong immigration. But I don't think that's even the number one concern for young people, immigration. I really think it's economic, it's inflation. And if Kamala doesn't start speaking to the needs of those young people, they're going to get tired of her. What goes up comes down with Gen Z. They're going to get tired.
Especially a sugar high. And that's a thing because, you have enough time before the election where she could implode. But okay, here's what I do like about
Tell me, Kennedy.
Because I know you were working with RFK Jr.
Yes.
RIP. I like that we have a truncated cycle. I mean, for me, for what I do, I love being able to talk about politics. I think the horse race is endlessly fascinating. I think human beings are flawed and deeply entertaining when their flaws are on display. And they make unforced errors constantly. That's really fun to talk about.
Exactly.
And seeing people rise and fall and jockey and capitalize on other people's mistakes, I think it's very, very fascinating. But I do like this short 3-month little cycle that we have.
That's what they do in Europe, with Nigel Farage. I think he only ran for like 30 days, 40 days in the UK. So it is insane that we have 18-month election cycles. It is a lot. And, Hillary Clinton in 2016, I think she spent $1.2 billion running for office and still lost. So
still the best president we've ever had.
So, what's interesting is Kamala's team and the Democrats, they're touting all of this fundraising. I've been reminding people, dollars don't vote, people vote, right? So it's great Kamala's raising all this money that was being withheld from Biden, but Hillary outraised Trump 2x in 2016 and still went home to Chappaqua, New York to go hiking through the woods. She's still lost. So
throwing vases at John Podesta.
Smashing cell phones. With Kamala Harris, one thing we did really well in the Kennedy campaign is I scripted a lot of videos for our social media geared toward young voters. In fact, this young voter script was the most successful video since the inception of the campaign. And all it was Bobby Kennedy next to a tree reading issues that matter to young people and talking about how he's going to help them. There was no special effects. We had no big budget for the video. Some people on the campaign didn't even want to make the video.
If his voice was a little bit more functional, do you think it would have been a different race?
No, I don't. I definitely don't.
I do.
You do? You think a little bit?
Just being honest. I know it's not his fault. I know that he has a medical condition that affects how he is able to communicate.
Right.
But I do think that for some people it was a vulnerability or a barrier.
For sure. I mean, it's complicated because someone who was in the thick of it for so long, we were pushed out of the Democratic primary. There was really no primary.
Which I thought was awful and
so,
shameful.
Exactly. Even with New Hampshire, they said if you step foot in New Hampshire, we're not going to count it. So
we're going to have you arrested. We're going to throw you in a gulag. Don't flash those pretty blue eyes at us.
So I think the voice definitely doesn't help him. I actually think it's kind of a cool superpower. Like Batman has a really weird voice. Some people just have, interesting voices. But I think it would have been hard anyway because they weren't going to have him in any way, shape, or form. And he has his own flaws as a candidate. But one thing we did well were these videos that spoke to young people. And Kamala, I don't know what they're doing. They've got millions of eyeballs on them. They're incredibly viral. Why not put out some videos with, hey, a 3-point plan to help young people get into homes?
Yeah.
A 5-point plan to help fix our education system.
People would absolutely love to hear that.
Exactly. I think
all hope is not lost. But also, but the next sentence should be, and here's how the government is going to save you, because they're not.
No, they're absolutely
not.
not.
And I can't imagine that she will have both houses of Congress. It is possible. I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's not entirely probable, but it could happen. No,
exactly. I think we got a long way to go till November 5th. I think J.D. Vance is taking a beating right now in the public. I think Trump is laying low a little bit.
And I know there are a lot of people who disagree with me. I don't care. I don't think he was the best choice. I think that was an emotional decision after the former president was nearly assassinated. I think that he probably had some other top contenders that were swirling. I think that he really, really liked Doug Burgum. But, he super vanilla. It's
Kennedy.
Fascinatingly boring. But I thought that J.D. Vance was, especially now with the race having changed, I would like to see Donald Trump swap out. I would like to see him swap in Tulsi Gabbard. Because Tulsi Gabbard took apart Kamala Harris's presidential campaign in a paragraph.
Yes.
So if she were on the stump appealing to, it's like, my oldest can vote for the first time. I imagine that that's a person that she would look up to and say, what an interesting life story she has. She's a patriot. She's a combat veteran. She's an independent. She was a Democrat.
Right.
She knows the devil from within. I thought that she would have been a much better choice.
It's funny we're meeting for the first time because we're on the same page about everything. I think maybe Tulsi's a mutual friend of ours. And I was making videos for months and months, and Tulsi, you know this, saying I thought she would have been a great VP pick. I thought she'd bring some independence, some disaffected Democrats, people on the fence. And like you said—
And some aloha.
Yeah, and some aloha. She knew how to dismantle Kamala Harris in that debate, calling her out on throwing people in prison and then laughing about smoking marijuana. So I was in this very same building, weeks before the convention saying, I'm in favor of Doug Burgum, a Glenn Youngkin, someone who's kind of more of an elder statesman. But I'm learning to like J.D. Vance. I'm open to getting to know him. I don't think this is the end-all be-all for J.D. Vance. He's getting some bad press now, but people have to remember Trump's Access Hollywood tape came out a month before his election in 2016, and he still won.
Right before the second debate, and everyone's like, he's dropping out.
He's done, and he still ended up beating the most powerful potential woman to ever—
Who was up by 30 points.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't think it's the end-all be-all for J.D. Vance. I think he should come out and articulate exactly what he means in a very clear way.
I don't know. Between cat ladies and couch humping, I don't know if he will be able to overcome that.
I don't know.
I don't think he's a bad guy. I think, it's like, I like Ohio. My daughter goes to college in Ohio. My uncle and his family live in Ohio.
Right. My family's from Ohio, too.
Yeah, it's a great state.
Right.
And it's a wonderful place to be from.
Exactly. No, I'm learning to love J.D. Vance. If he had made some jokes about the cat comments and then apologized, expressed contrition, Americans love when you fall on the sword and say you're sorry. If he had said, you know what, I'm sorry, I said a dumb, idiot thing, here's what I really meant, there's a war on families in this country, family values, you could have just ended it there. When you don't just nip it in the bud within the first day or two, and I learned this from our campaign, the media is going to help it grow legs, and it's going to continue on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and that's what's happened with the childless cat lady comments. I mean, for me, 75-80% of my audience on TikTok and Instagram is all women. I've got girls, I've got their moms. 2 women just came up to me the other day saying, we watch your videos, and I'm like, these are my people. I would never alienate them. I'd be a little more careful with what I said about women for that reason. I also think politics is about addition and bringing people in. You don't want to exclude anybody. And so if J.D. Vance could just articulate what he meant and maybe just express a little contrition, I think they're probably having meetings saying, well, if he apologizes, then he's capitulating to the liberal MSNBC mob. But I think this is one of those instances from a comms perspective, just apologize. What do you have to lose? And move on.
Yeah, and it's like, that's when you just have to turn to some old school advice.
Right.
Like, what would they have told Ronald Reagan if he were accused of humping the couch? I'd have been like, at least I wasn't impregnating 16-year-olds.
Right.
I would lean into the couch, but that's just me.
I don't know. I think if he showed a little sense of humor, I think J.D. Vance needs to have his speeches punched up a bit. His public speaking.
And he's a great writer. Here's the problem. So I want you to continue that, but I want to give you a quick aside.
No, tell me.
So I was, and I believe you were there as well. I was I wasn't in the room. I was backstage at Gutfeld watching the J.D. Vance speech at the RNC, and I was like, he is a great writer, but if you take me somewhere, like, I am a pretty gracious audience. I don't care if I agree with you. Like, I teared up when Michelle Obama gave her final speech at the DNC. If you take me somewhere, I will go with you. I want goosebumps.
Go on that journey.
I want to be emotionally connected to whatever you're saying. Like Sarah Huckabee Sanders, I was like sobbing. And luckily, I was alone in my hotel room because that was embarrassing. But she emotionally connected with the candidate, with her audience, with her family. It was masterful. And then J.D. Vance like, and then this one time, and everyone's buried in Kentucky. And I was like, come on, man.
I actually felt like
it was well written, but emotionally empty.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting. We're on the same page about all these things. I keep saying that, but I felt like the convention speeches could have been punched up. I think Kamala Harris, I read last night, she's being praised for giving these 20 to 30-minute speeches. Like, she gets in, she gives a short speech to a crowd, she does some media and gets out. I think if the Trump campaign can adopt some of that, because anyone who's been to a Trump rally, near the end, some people are going to their cars. It can get long.
The RNC, the older guy next to me started doing squats. I thought he dropped his phone.
No, Martha and Brett.
He was like, no, my legs are falling asleep. I can't keep standing up.
When they came back to Martha and Brett after the convention speech, after Trump's convention speech, they're like, Well, that's a lot to dissect. That was
There were
long.
12 exit points where it was like, he was like, and then in our country, I'm like, yes, it's going to be nice and shy. And then the family, I look in the family box and they're all going, I'm like, yes, they're backstage. It's going to be 5 minutes. 40 minutes later, it was like watching SpongeBob. 3 hours later.
1 eternity later. But yeah, it was long. Like I said, though, I'm learning to like JD Vance. He's got the blue ocean eyes, the facial hair. He does kind of the normie dad wave to people. So I'm learning to like him, but he needs to articulate what he means very clearly. We've got less than 100 days left. So you can't leave wiggle room for people to question where you stand.
I think there's wiggle room. I think you swap Tulsi right in. Can they do that legally? I haven't even looked into it.
As much as I can't stand Nikki Haley, I really can't stand her at all. If he had chosen Nikki Haley as VP, oh my God, this election would be over.
It would be buttoned up.
Over.
Signed, sealed, delivered.
Right, and I don't want the people out there to think that I am a big Nikki Haley fan because I'm not at all. I'm not a big Nikki Haley fan.
Let's just start dropping bombs on North Korea, China, Iran.
Is this about her sitting on the board of Boeing? Yeah. Not to borrow Vivek's talking points. But yeah, no, Nikki Haley, I think if you had chosen her, it would have been a slam dunk. But we always have close elections. I think we were riding high because of everything going on with Trump, and then going into the convention, it seemed like, oh, he's going to win in a landslide. Yeah. Elections always come down to a few 100,000 people across 5 or 6 states, right? Sure. So this election's probably not going to be any different.
It never is. I mean, that's welcome to American presidential politics.
Right.
And that
absolutely
is what is maddening about Kamala Harris being, parachuted in at the most convenient possible moment, because she can't really be tested. That's why the Obamas didn't rush to endorse her, because she's not a good candidate and we deserve better.
Absolutely. The last thing I'll say on that topic, I don't know how much time we have left, but I really believe Kamala is an illegitimate candidate. She didn't run in the primary. They didn't have an open convention. They slotted her in and coronated her on a Sunday afternoon and just gave her all the money they'd been raising for Biden.
They would have had to have returned it to donors.
Absolutely. And this is the party of democracy. They could have had a quick, short primary. I think the voters would have felt better about that. Now the Democratic elite, MSNBC, they've all got their talking points. Trump is weird. JD Vance is weird. They all coalesced around Kamala. That's not how this country should be. If Kamala wins, how is she going to go and protest, the corrupt elections in Russia when we just had an illegitimate candidate who was coronated on a Sunday afternoon?
Vladimir Putin, he's going to say that next time he sits down with Chris Wallace. Okay, I want to play this for you because I want your reaction to this, because this is a social contagion that happens to every person who runs for president. Okay. Let's hear Kamala Harris with her new affectation.
And you all helped us win in 2020, and we're going to do it again in 2024.
Woo! Yeah! Woo! Yes, we will. Sí se puede. So she's got this new Southern accent, and it's like Cheeseball Swanson.
Yeah, I think she's just taking on fake accents wherever she goes. But here's the thing about Kamala Harris. It's not just the accent.
Konnichiwa, Japanese American ambassadors for freedom. It's like, lady, you can't do that. Like, someone has to call her out. This is cultural appropriation. This is bigotry. This is nonsense. She's a fraud, stolen valor.
But Kamala Harris, Kennedy, has never stood for anything. 1 week she wants to ban fracking. Now she's like, drill, baby, drill. I love fracking. 1 week she wants to defund the police.
Sarah Palin.
Yeah, exactly. Now she doesn't. Oh my God, I wish she was Sarah Palin. Wish she had that personality. But no, with me, Kamala stands for nothing. So the fake accent isn't any different. Yeah, she's a chameleon.
You pour teriyaki on tofu, it tastes like teriyaki. You pour curry on tofu, it tastes like curry.
Will, if you're watching this, we've taken your show off the rails. I apologize. But yeah, no, with Kamala, she stands for nothing, and you fall for everything if you stand for nothing with her. So we'll have to see what happens. She is garnering a lot of support. I think if I were Trump's team, I would be hunkering down, preparing for that debate on September 10th. I would show up to that debate ready to call her on her record, to hold her accountable, to do all the things you need to do. Because right now, she's going to announce her VP. She's going to do a whole VP tour. They're going to have their convention August 19th. Kamala is going to eat up the media for the next few weeks. The one thing I'll say, though, I firmly believe people get tired of Kamala the more they see her.
Yeah, I mean that voice. Now what y'all are gonna do is we're all gonna ride and giddy up into the don't say it.
No, with Kamala, the more you see her laugh and she has Megan Thee Stallion performing for her, I think people are going to get sick of her. So even with, Trump and other candidates, they can get oversaturated. I think Trump should take some time, hunker down, figure out your battle strategy.
Do you think she's gonna duet WAP with Megan on the road?
Does her audience know what WAP even means? That's my question as well. But no, with Megan Thee Stallion, I love how in like 2016 you had Beyonce, Lady Gaga, Katy Perry. Now she's like Megan Thee Stallion. We'll see if Beyonce shows up for the convention. But none of these celebrity endorsements even mean anything. Like I said,
not
Hillary,
anymore.
No,
not in this day and age.
Hillary had every celebrity on earth endorse her.
So did Joe Biden.
So did Joe Biden.
That turncoat George Clooney. he's angling for the vice presidency.
You think Clooney wants that VP
pretty
spot?
brown eyes? Oh yeah, he does.
One role he's never had.
That's exactly right.
No, exactly.
He's like, I'll just smile with these giant chiclets for 4 years from Lake Como. I will zoom in.
And what's his wife's name? She's like a wannabe like virtue signal.
Amal.
Amabuddin. What's her name?
Amal, yeah.
No, Amal. Yeah, Clooney.
Yeah.
But no, Clooney. Maybe he wants that VP spot. I think she'll probably choose Shapiro or Andy Bashir or someone like that. I mean, I think she wants Pennsylvania.
Oh, that's the pro-Palestine crowd will love that.
Yeah, exactly.
They're gonna lose their minds. Like if she I think she should choose Josh Shapiro.
Right, exactly.
Like he's a moderate, popular governor from a must-win state.
Mm-hmm.
But, she's so terrified of Rashida Tlaib. She's going to be like, I'm going to lose damn boy.
Rashida Tlaib with her paddle she holds up.
More criminal. Yeah, I said it again.
Me when Chili's runs out of ranch. But yeah, no, I have no idea. I think she'll probably choose Josh Shapiro, and then that'll give her a whole bunch of press. I think Josh Shapiro, he's also taken on this kind of Obama voice recently. They're all just taking on new characters, new voices. They're like, we've got a couple weeks till November 5th. We're just going to make up anything and just coast until we get there. So,
oh my garden. Well, it's certainly going to be a fascinating end of summer into fall.
Right.
I would love to talk to you again, Link Lauren. I think you're amazing.
Thank you so
Where
much.
can people find you?
You can find me on, I don't know if y'all are on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, just it's Link Lauren, LINK, LAUREN.
Are you related to Ralph Lauren?
No, I'm not.
Wouldn't that be great?
That would be great. I'd probably get some free clothes.
The Polo Lounge. Someday.
I know, I'd have a really sick wardrobe. But thank you so much for having me, Kennedy. I am a huge fan of yours and Will, and I know I should act like I've been here before, but I'm always grateful when anyone has me at Fox. So
I'm always amazed when my key card works. I share your enthusiasm, Link. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Much more of the Will Cain Show in moments. Stay with us.
Thank you, guys.
It's time to take the quiz.
5 questions, 5 minutes a day, 5 days a week.
History, pop culture, science, sports, civics. How much do you know? Let's find out.
Who was the first person to walk on the moon?
Jackson or something?
Neil Armstrong.
Take the quiz every weekday at thequiz.fox and then listen to the quiz podcast to find out how you did.
Play, share, and of course, listen to the quiz right now at thequiz.fox.
Friday on Fox Nation.
What you're about to see is incredible.
The sensational hit show bursts back into action.
Drop the gun!
Don't miss all new episodes of Crime Cam 24/7. New cameras.
You have eyes on him with the drone.
Exposing new crimes. And delivering swift justice. Crime Cam 24/7. New episode Friday on Fox Nation. Sign up now at foxnation.com.
America is streaming.
Kudlow on Fox Business is now on the go for podcast fans. Download the Kudlow Show podcast every weekday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com. Kudlow covers the latest headlines and business trends with an emphasis on the financial impact facing households and businesses across the country. Listen to interviews with key business newsmakers. The Kudlow podcast will be available on the go after the show every weekday at foxbusinesspodcasts.com or wherever you download your favorite podcasts.
Hi, I'm talking. Sorry, I'm just adjusting things. I was a roadie for a long time in the 90s. No, I wasn't. It's the Will Cain Show. Kennedy in for Will Cain. I'm sorry, my top knot is crooked. Oh my gosh, that's so much better. Will is in paradise right now. No, he's not in heaven, thankfully. Can I say where he is, gentlemen?
Yeah, of course.
All right, he's in Hawaii.
Heck yeah.
So what are people saying on the message boards and the blogs and the AOL Instant Messenger?
People are loving you guys. We got a live chat going on. People are loving Link and Kennedy.
Link is amazing.
Yeah.
I have to say,
funny.
because a lot of people write off the Gen Z politicos.
Yeah.
And there's Patrick. Hi, Patrick. Thumbs up, camo. I dig it. I'm with it. I love survivalism, so
Can't see his
I
bottom
celebrate
half,
whatever
fine.
you're doing.
Yeah.
Probably don't want to at this point, and that's fine. Someone charmed the
It's early
pants
in the
off of
morning.
him earlier. So, but it's nice to see someone, because oftentimes these Gen Zers, people assume that they're lazy and leftist, and I don't know exactly where Link leans. A lot of alliteration there, but I do appreciate what he had to say.
No, it was great. A lot of people were liking it. Not a lot of Kamala fans, as you would expect in the chat.
What?
Especially about the accent. And people, I've actually done that before, I think, with a Southern accent, because I have a low voice, and it could sound like, "Hey, y'all, how you doing?" And I've done it
That's
one
a nice
time.
drawl, but that just means you speak slowly and deliberately.
Exactly.
Yes.
But she was doing it for a very specific reason, and for that reason, a lot of people in the chat think she's very fake.
No, she's disingenuous, and it is her inauthenticity, because on, of course, anyone who questions her record, and it could be like, you hate fracking. You hate guns, you're a confiscator. You stop slut-shaming her this moment. It doesn't matter who she dated before our second gentleman. You're disgusting, you perverts. You just want to subjugate women.
The original Slick Willie, as some would say.
Yeah.
As Bill would
Willie
say.
Brown. Okay, but I will tell you a fun fact about Willie Brown, and people outside of California don't know this. If you ever spend time with a Californian, they don't flush after tinkle. And it is because of Willie Brown. Because when California was going through a massive drought, the thing that he is most famous for is the phrase that was drilled into every Californian's head: if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. And so anytime you spend, and this is weird for East Coasters.
I didn't know that.
Because they will walk into bathrooms in an occupied house and be like, what is wrong with these heathens? And it's because that is what Willie Brown is most famous for, that phrase.
I did not know that.
And for foisting Kamala Harris upon the mono-party system that should be much more of a crucible than it is in California. And now the rest of us here in the 2024 election.
I have a couple lefty friends that actually do that from California, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
You do not flush number one.
No.
I was fascinated by it.
Ask them. They'll tell you in great detail.
Why didn't they go back once it was all over?
I don't know.
Because
Seems like an
water,
easy switch.
man.
Because climate change?
Climate
Come on,
change, the
guys.
water, man. Why do you hate the earth
Save
so
the water.
much?
Yeah.
You got to save water. But yes, so now there are a bunch of buffoons, and I would think to myself, like, what would I hate more right now, Kamala Harris or Gavin Newsom? And right now in this moment, I think that Kamala is more dangerous. And, I have no problem shining a light on her disgusting, putrid record, not only as a prosecutor in California, but, the nothingness that is the vice presidency. And that's why they stuck Theodore Roosevelt in the vice presidency, because he was such a threat. He was such a charismatic war hero that they just wanted him to fade away and just dissolve in this puddle of nothingness that was the vice presidency. And she's kind of turned it into that again, which is really exciting. But you don't want that from a president. We have to think to ourselves, like, what do we want? Of course we want empathy, but we want competence. We want strength. We want someone who can unite, who can rise and exist above the fray. And even if we have disagreements, they still see the thing in us that is worthy. And of course, for those of us who love this country, who want it to be a better place for our children, I will end where we started. And that is freedom. And if you have a politician whom you disagree with, but still respects your right to exist and thrive freely as you, an individual, see fit, then I will have far more respect for that person. That person is not Kamala Harris. She does not respect the individual. She apparently abhors freedom And as long as she's running, I'm going to keep running my mouth. I want to thank Will Cain for allowing me to sit in on his phenomenal podcast, The Will Cain Show. He will be back in action very soon. You can catch me on Kennedy Saves the World, my podcast, foxnewspodcast.com. Find it there and love it. Kennedy out. The Will Cain Show. Goodbye.